Welcome to Living Well. We're so glad that you're here with us today. We have a very exciting topic. For the last 4 weeks, we've been talking about choice, and we know that God has given us a choice, and the choices that we make either can help us or harm our health. And so today we want to talk about rest. We know that if we get plenty of rest, we can perform, we can think at our very best. So my name is Dr. Jennifer Sankey, and I want to remind you that our program is for educational purposes only. We do not assess, we do not treat, we do not diagnose. And so if you have any questions that are very specific to your condition, we ask that you consult your physician. But I can tell you that today what we're talking about, I don't think your physician would oppose to you getting more rest. And so let me get started with about what we're talking about today. It's really about having a well-rested mind. So today we have some interactive activities that I will be engaging you on with, but we're going to start out by talking about being awake with a well-rested mind. So have you noticed in our society that people are busy all the time, from sunup to sundown? People are rushing on the highways. At work, there's so many demands. And so you may be asking, how can I rest my mind in the middle of the day while I'm full awake? So I'm glad you asked, because we're going to go through this today and allow you the opportunity to answer some of those questions. So as we talked about, we were talking about creation life, and rest really is a choice. So we've talked about choice, and today we're going to give you a choice of how you want to manage your life by getting rest. What I do know is when you get adequate rest, that you are blessed. So say in your spirit, I am blessed when I get adequate rest. I am blessed when I get adequate rest. So is your mind well rested? That's a question I have for you. Remember, I talked about the busyness at work, at home, on the highways, here, there, and everywhere. Well, I want to ask you, is your mind well rested? Do you feel like you are thinking and functioning at your best because your mind is rested? Only you can answer that question. I'm hoping by the end of this presentation that you will be able to say, yes, my mind is well rested. And if you cannot, you'll know exactly what you need to do and what I need to do to make sure that our mind is well rested. So let me tell you what you need to know about rest to live well. You know, this is a Living Well program. And so we want to make sure that everything we talk about, that we not only inform you, but we want to transform your life. Yes, we do. So even today on this topic of rest, we want to not only inform you, but figure out how we can make your life even better as a result of the information that you hear today. So you may be asking, so what is rest? We will talk about that. You may even say, well, how much rest do I really need? And how can I rest in mind while I am fully awake? And what are ways to put rest to the test? So what I can tell you is rest is when you cease from work or movement in order to relax, refresh yourself, or recover strength. So you literally can be full awake and rest your mind. This week, I decided I was going to rest my mind. So I decided I wasn't going to watch the news, and I was not going to drive to work with music. During that time, I was going to allow my mind to rest, even though I was driving with my eyes fully open. I was going to rest myself so that I can relax and refresh. So why did I do that? I did that because I was under a lot of busy deadlines at work. And I knew that if I listened to music into work, and then I got to work, then I would also be a stimulant to my mind. And I wanted to rest it before I got there. So you know that the heart and lungs automatically rest. We breathe and then we rest. We breathe and then inhale and exhale. Our heart pumps and then it rests. It does it automatically. But our brain does not really have those cycles of rest. Unless you're fully asleep, then it is resting. But throughout the day, we want to give our brain the same benefit of our heart and our lung. Think about it. If your heart was beating all through the day, and we were breathing during the day, at some point it's going to exhaust both of those major organs of our body. So what we want to do is train our brain to rest. Train the brain to rest. When we rest our brain, we can live well, we can live long. People who shorten their sleep at night, particularly, there are studies that show that they also shorten their life. And so we want to make sure that you get the best out of life by getting rest. So what I'm talking about is not a new topic. In the beginning, after God created the world, he rested. He reminds people in Exodus 28-11 to rest. He reminds people in Hebrews 4 to rest. And throughout the Bible, rest is at the front of God's mind. So our rest is important to God. Our rest is important to us. And when we rest, God can bless us more when we rest. So rest is really more than sleep. It's really possible to be fully awake and letting your mind rest, even though you're not asleep. But we can choose to rest our mind anytime. You just heard my example. I was driving to work, no music, came home, no TV. Again, allowing the mind to rest. Again, giving it this cycle, very similar to how the heart and the lungs rest, allowing the brain to rest as well. Have you ever been so tired that you couldn't think straight? Have you ever driven home and wondered how you got home? So what that means is that your body was on automatic in a sense, but you really weren't paying attention to your mind. Your mind was not really paying attention because you're like, how did I get here so soon? Or maybe you just feel like you're so tired sometimes that you can't even think. I know my sister and I, after 9 o'clock at night, we don't talk on the phone because our minds are tired and we cannot think clearly and we don't make the best decisions. So maybe you would like to think of ways that you can make sure that while you're fully awake, that you can choose some rest periods for your body. So I think about the turnpike. When I'm traveling on the turnpike, every 50 miles, there's a rest stop, right? And whether you're tired or not, they're there for you. And I would say, treat your mind with care and to make sure that you go so far during the day and choose periods of rest of your mind. So we do know that 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night helps maintain your brain health. That's great at night, but what about during the day? So again, resting at night, going to bed on time, going to bed and allowing your body to rest is really important. So when we began the conversation about choice early last month, one of the goals that I had, and many of you have, is let me go to bed on time. I need to get to bed by 9:30, by 10 o'clock. And my dear friend, I had an accountability buddy. It was Miss Lee and Miss Juanita. They would text at night and say, are you going to bed? Are you getting ready for bed? So let me tell you what happened with that. So the first couple of days went great. And then I had a conference and I was away from home. And wouldn't you believe that some of those meetings did not end till 9 o'clock. And my goal was to be in bed by 9:30. So the first night I made that excuse. I was at a conference and I could, the meetings ended late. But then I planned that before I went to the meeting, be prepared to go to bed when you got back to your room. And so all of us need someone to keep us accountable because rest is so important to our brain health. When we tire the brain out, we're more at risk for Alzheimer's and dementia and forgetfulness. All of us have done it. We've set our keys down someplace and can't remember where we put them. And we walk around the house because we were not mindful at the time we set the keys down. So now do you see why it's so important to rest the mind so that when you do task, you can remember what you have done. So you've heard the theme, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. That was a big thing years ago. And it was really a promotion about education to make sure that we go to higher education and learn as much as we can so that we can perform at our best. But this applies to sleep as well. So we don't want to waste our mind on not getting adequate sleep at night or resting our mind throughout the day. Many times we forget our mind is even in our brain, but we want to remember that we don't want to tire our mind out and leaving it so exhausted that we cannot think clearly. We want to make sure that we practice healthy habits and rest the mind, very much like the heart and the lungs. Take pauses. We want to pause throughout the day and be very intentional. And that's the word, intentional about how we care for our mind. So let me tell you about some rest robbers. They take your rest right out of you and drain your brain. The news, if you listen to the news every day and 2 and 3 times a day, and some people let the news run all day, it will drain your brain. They keep saying the same thing over and over again, reporting the same news over and over again. And that can be, some of those news is not always good news that they're reporting, or even on the radio. So sometimes people say, well, I'm going to listen to the radio. Well, it's okay to listen to the radio, but if every time you get in the car or get in your house, if there's music and there's no silence, it drains the brain, because the brain has to process every single sound, everything we see, everything we do. The brain is going to process that information. And so be mindful of that. Heavy workload. If you're working at a high intense level every single day at work, it is important that you figure out how to balance your workload. It may be delegating to someone else. It may be doing some today, some tomorrow. It may be just breaking it up in small pieces so that you're not overloading your brain. I was talking to an individual this week and my heart was very sad. And a young lady in her 30s, and she comes to work. I see her when she arrives. We get there about 8:30, and she says she's been working till 11 o'clock at night. And I'm like, why? Everybody else is asleep. No one's working. No one's going to even see it till the next day. But her mind is telling her that she needs to do it because she wants to meet the expectations. And I get it. But what I do know is the brain can't work from 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night and really be functioning at your very best. So long hours is not good either. Prolonged periods of stress. And we've all experienced it from various things that may have happened in our lives. But prolonged stress drains the brain, clogs the brain, fogs the brain, all of that. So we want to make sure that we're mindful of these rest robbers that drain the brain. Now, almost everybody I know has a cell phone or a computer. I know they have one. And sometimes we're touching that cell phone or in front of the computer for long periods of time. We need to step away, because remember, not only is our brain being overstimulated, but our body has been sitting for long periods of time. So again, these are rest robbers, and we need to capture them so that we can be at our very best. So these are questions for you to answer now. How often do you watch the news? You can put it in the chat box, but how often? Is it once a day? Is it twice a day? Or is it all day? Feel free to type it into the chat box. And do you listen to the radio while driving? And what type of music are you listening to when you're driving? Because some music is so high tense and bump, 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 just going, that it could actually overstimulate the brain. And are you able to complete your task at work during your shift, or do you take work home? Now, many people may leave work, but they work from home. They begin to do their work at home. These are questions for you to answer, because again, it helps us to assess what is draining our brain that puts us at risk for forgetfulness, for Alzheimer's, for dementia. And we know, and I know that sometimes when we do not rest the brain, for people who've been up for long periods of time, long shifts, they're more at risk of having seizures because their brain is just overstimulated and have not rested. So how many hours a day do you work? Are you working 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, or more? Again, that affects our brain. And what is causing you stress? This is one thing that many people do not answer for themselves. What is causing the stress? And sometimes they know what's causing the stress, but they don't remove themselves from the stressor. So what I would say after today's presentation, identify what is causing you stress that is draining your brain, because many times when we're under stress, we do not sleep well at night. So that means that during the day and at night, our brain is highly stressed. We're not resting, and that affects the way we think, the way we act. And then ask yourself, how much time am I spending on my phone and on my computer? We do know that excessive time on either not only affects our brains, but our vision. It affects many things about our body. So again, answer these questions for yourself, because we want you to have a healthy brain. So lack of rest, it slows down your thought process, impairs your memory, difficulty learning. Sometimes when people are in school, they stay up for late hours trying to do homework. But the truth is, the longer you're up and you're not getting the rest that you need, it does affect your ability to learn. When I was in school, what I remember is I would stay up late, long hours. What I remember is the next day I would look back at what I wrote, and many times had to rewrite it again because it really was not the best thoughts that were on the paper. It slows your response time and information processing. When you're extremely tired and you're driving, you're at a higher risk of being in an accident. So again, before you get on the road, assess your mind, assess what's going on, see if you're at your best. And also lack of rest alters your mood. So if somebody's really grumpy in your family or grumpy at work, you may want to check in with them and say, how much rest are you getting at night? How much rest? Why don't you just take a little break? Why don't we go for a walk around the park, around the sidewalk, around the parking lot, to allow them to rest their mind away from their computer? Because sometimes we don't realize how we are responding to people. We may be short, we may be abrupt, and we don't realize it. And it could be simply because we have not rested our brain enough. So lack of rest of the brain, it increases depression. You maybe did not know that. But again, remember the body, the entire body is affected by what we do. And so when the body and the brain, and particularly the brain, does not get the rest it needs, you're at an increased risk of depression. Also, I've noticed when people are depressed, sometimes they're always in the bed for long periods of time. So you have to pay attention to, am I in the bed all the time? Don't want to get up. That may be a sign of depression because of either overstimulation of the brain, and sometimes even depression can come from understimulation of the brain. It also affects our relationships. When we do not get enough rest, again, we may withdraw from conversations, we may be intolerant of behaviors, not forgiving, all of that because the brain is tired, and it affects your job performance as well. Now, remember, many people complain, I never get a promotion, they never look at me. Again, I'm not saying you're not getting enough rest, but again, make sure that you're getting the rest and you're performing at your best so that you will be considered for those job advancements. There are some dangers of an unrested mind. When you are tired, do not make any critical decisions. You're not going to make the best decisions. Do not decide if you're going to have children or get a divorce or get married or buy a car or buy a house. That is not the time when your mind is unrested. And unfortunately, many people, they go on Amazon at night when they're tired and they start buying. And then they buy all this stuff and then it comes to your house and they're like, I don't need this. I don't need this. And they end up sending it back or they end up keeping it. But that can lead to unnecessary debt because their mind is not rested and they're making decisions. Also, an unrested mind, whether it's during the day or at night, allows you to indulge in unhealthy habits. Eating more, drinking less water, eating more sweets, doing things that maybe you would not have ordinarily done if your mind were better rested. And you heard me mention that auto accidents happen, and this is all in the research, when the mind is not rested. So when you are getting ready to go on a long trip or you've been on the road for a long period of time, pull off to the side, rest your body, rest your mind, just close your eyes just for a few moments and allow your mind to rest. So let me tell you my story. So about 4 years ago, I ended up, the more is not better. I retired from working at a job for 40 years, and I was blessed that I was able to be at home to help care for my mother during her last days. But right after my mom passed, I got really busy because I had just finished my PhD degree, and I began to help other doctoral students, began to volunteer, started growing my own business, was taking my niece to school because I had time, right? Managing my own home, my affairs and everything. And I was busy. I was busier, my niece told me, than when I was at work. She said, Auntie, you are busy. And as we were driving to school one day, we were driving home. She said, Auntie, what did you do today? So I went down my list and I was so proud. I helped this student, I helped that student, I did this, I did that. She said, I sound like you're too busy. She says, really, Auntie, you need to choose days that you're going to do that for other people and choose days that you're going to do it for yourself. Now, she was 15 or 16 at the time. And when she said it out of her mouth, I realized that she was right. I was doing all of this stuff. It felt like the more I did, the better I felt. but not realizing that it really was taxing my brain, because with doctoral students, they felt because I was available, they called me at 9 o'clock at night and we'd be on the phone till 10 and 11, just as if I were in school again. It was when I changed to Tuesday, Thursday of telling the students and doing other things that's when I would work on it. And the other 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday were my days, that my life became more balanced. But I had not realized it, but my niece realized it. And so sometimes people have to tell you that you're not resting. You're not resting your mind. You're not thinking as clear. You're not, sometimes oh, I'm good. But if someone tells you and they acknowledge it and you see it, they see it in you, it's best to take advice. When she told me that, and I immediately, that same week, I started shifting those students to Tuesday, Thursday. If they would call me and say, I want to meet with you tomorrow, I would used to say yes. But if it was on a Wednesday, I would say, I can meet with you on Thursday. Or if it was on a Thursday or Friday, I would say I can meet with you next Tuesday, because I was working on the weekends as well. So our minds need to rest, because we're blessed by God when we rest. So resting the mind is a healthy habit. Sometimes people say, oh, if you take a nap in the middle of the day, you're lazy. No, that's not true. If you close your eyes at your desk and just take some deep breaths and rest for 2 minutes, that's not being lazy. You want to live in the moment, but you want to make sure that you're not overtaxing your mind. So it's okay to have downtime. It's okay for your brain health to rest a little bit. Research has really found that taking time to rest breaks throughout the day improves your mood, it boosts your performance, and increases your ability to concentrate and pay attention. So what I would say to all of us throughout the day, schedule times to get up. If you start work at 8, maybe around 10:30 or 11, stand up and walk around, move around and change your environment, or just sit at your desk and close your eyes, rest a little bit. Most of us, if you work in certain environments, you can close your door, and just rest. Again, not putting your head down and go to full sleep, but you can close your eyes and rest your mind. So let's wake up with a rested mind. What that means is we want to make sure that not only in the morning are we rested, but we want to rest throughout the day. And so give your mind a chance to pause and refresh so that you can work more efficiently, more effectively. You're going to be at your best when you're getting the adequate rest that you need. So stay awake and rest your mind. This week, I'm going to challenge all of us to silence, to actually turn off the news. If you watch it, twice a day, try to do it once a day this week. When you're driving, try to maybe one day this week, try to drive without any music. Just pay attention to your surroundings. Look at the trees, look at the flowers, look at the sunrise, look at the sunset. Silence. Imagine if our world has silence. We are always in constant noise. So for the next minute, we're going to sit in silence. All right, I went over a little more than a minute, but how did that feel just to not do anything? Many of us gets a little anxious. Okay, is the minute up yet? But begin to train your mind to be in silence, to listen to God speaking, silence, to hear the Holy Spirit guiding you, silence. Guard your thoughts, think positive thoughts. Sometimes our mind is in overload, and so we begin to start thinking negative. And so begin to think about quoting scriptures when you're in a mood or an attitude and you don't feel your best. Begin to speak scriptures into your spirit and liven up your spirit. Schedule time to rest, as I talk about, and close your eyes and take many vacations. So I enjoy going to the beach. That's one of my favorite places. So if we were to do another minute, I would close my eyes. I would imagine myself at the beach, that I would be walking along the sand with them picking up shells as I go, and that I will be looking far into the distance and looking at the waves just coming in and going out, coming in and going out. Many of you have been to some beautiful places on vacation. It's okay to take a vacation in your mind, just reminiscing or looking on your phone at the pictures of the fun things that you have done. So rest and reset your mind. This is the key. This is the takeaway message. Rest and reset. Rest and reset. Step away from stressful situations. You don't have to answer people every time that they send you a text. You don't have to answer the phone every time it rings. You do not have to answer every email that comes through. If you are tired, it would be better not to respond. If you're in a stressful situation at work, you may say to someone, let me get back with you. You don't have to answer right then and there because, again, you may not be at the best and at your peak. So sometimes it's better to allow people to wait. I'll get back with you by 2 this afternoon. I'll get back with you by tomorrow. Begin to take control of your own mind. Read a book, read a magazine, even if it's for a few moments. I enjoy reading. I love to fill my mind with good information and new information, or even just refreshing my mind on things. But sometimes that's a way to calm and rest the mind as well. Change your routine up. Sometimes we do the same thing all the time, but it does cause us anxiety. So change it up a little bit, drive a different route that will actually enhance your thinking, because now you have to, this is not familiar. I need to pay attention to the signs. Take a vacation. Many of us, we want to wait until something happens. Now we want to take a vacation, plan a vacation. If you don't have a vacation plan for this year, just plan somewhere to go somewhere. When I was younger, they used to have cruises out of Port Canaveral to nowhere. You get on the cruise, they drive you out in the middle of the ocean for about 4 hours. It was just nice just to be out in the middle of the ocean, sitting there, relaxing. Take a bath, watch a film, go to a play, pet your pet. There's many things. Try a new recipe. All of those are things that can rest your mind and reset your mind. You choose what you believe will help you reset your mind. So resting the mind by reciting scripture is a wonderful thing to do. Sometimes we are stressed, but there's so many scriptures that can help us to rest our mind. So one of them that I absolutely love, come to me and I will give you rest. In peace, I will lay down and sleep. This is in Psalms 4:8. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. So we should be resting at night. We should not be going to bed with a lot of things on our mind. We should clear our minds before we lay down to rest. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. So when we rest in the Lord, wait on him for decisions that we may be asking him for. Just wait on him. Don't become fretful, because that's not good for your mind. Not good for your mind. Don't worry about what's happening with other people. Don't fret yourself about that, because if they're wicked, that will come to pass. But I want us to learn to rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. And then from Isaiah 26:3, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you. Talking about God, because he's trusting you. So throughout the day, there's some things that come our way, like I say, stressors, things we see, things we hear, that sometimes can be very stressful. But God can keep us in perfect peace when we keep our mind stayed on him and when we trust him to work things out for our good. So lastly, a well-rested mind strengthens our overall well-being. Our overall well-being, mentally, physically, spiritually. When we rest our mind, it benefits the entire body. So the question I have for you, we've already done that one. Which mental activity will you do beginning today and throughout the day to rest your mind? I would say make a conscious decision of what you're going to do to rest your mind so that you can think clear, have a great mood and attitude, perform at your best, and receive the blessing that God has for you. And these are my references. Any questions? Any questions?
This is Emily. Okay, that was so refreshing and so enlightening about resting your mind. I never thought of it that way. To be awake, but still be able to rest your mind.
Absolutely.
And that was powerful. I was just thinking about naps. You mentioned nap.
Mhm.
I wonder, how long or when is the best time to nap? I know there are countries that have nap time, siestas, they call it.
Mhm.
Especially those Latin American countries, yeah. They have a period of time when everything is shut down
Mhm.
and everybody take a break.
Yes.
And I was thinking about, what's the best time to take a nap and for how long?
And it's going to change for everybody, really, it's going to depend on the individual. I do know that people say you can lay down for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes and get a power nap and still get up and be energized. And I believe that can happen. I remember years ago, my sister and I were traveling together and I had been driving. I got very tired. And I said to her, can you drive? And she said, absolutely. So I got in the passenger seat and I went to sleep. And shortly after, she's like, Jennifer, I'm very tired. I can't drive. Can you drive? And I said, okay. But I thought we had been driving for, maybe an hour or so. We had only gone 10 miles. But I woke up and I was able to drive. I think we had still another 3 to 4 hours to get home. And I was still able to drive and I was fully awake. So I think it just depends on your activity. If you have a lot of exertion, you may need a longer nap, maybe an hour or 2 hours. When I used to take naps, I would give myself 2 hours, but everybody doesn't need 2 hours. I think it depends on how quickly it can recharge.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was just looking up quickly the benefits of naps,
Mhm.
and I saw where one of its restoration,
Mhm.
rejuvenation. So it's very beneficial. Naps are very beneficial for the body. So just taking that 10
Absolutely.
miles, so that was about 20 minutes or so.
Yes. It
Nap
was.
rejuvenated you and you were able to drive, wow,
Absolutely.
for another 3 hours.
Yes.
So naps are very beneficial. I know when I used to work nights, um, it came a period where I just had to stop. I couldn't think anymore. I couldn't do anything. I could not function. And just going to the break room, relax. I didn't even have to close my eyes, but just the change of scenery, the
Mhm.
change of all the business and everything that's happening around me, hearing the bells and
Mhm.
all the different songs when in the hospital, and just to go in the break room where it's all quiet because I do not want television, I don't want anything, and just sit there, take some deep breaths, and I was able to when I get out, I felt rejuvenated and able to continue my night. So it's very essential for us to take some moment in our days during the day and take a nap. You don't have to close your
Absolutely.
eyes and go to sleep, but just take a break. Yeah.
Ellen, you mentioned something very important. While you're sitting there resting your mind throughout the day, it's important to breathe, to take those deep breaths in and out, to get that oxygen to the brain to help refresh it and revive it. So again, remember to breathe, because that is so healthy for the brain. But it's important that when you're sitting there, you're relaxing, breathe, and making sure that and that helps relax the entire body as well. But I would encourage all of us, do not minimize the importance of resting your brain throughout the day, because when we overload it, you get to the point you can't think clearly, you don't make the best decisions.
Yeah.
Any other question? Go ahead, Emlyn.
Yeah, I was just saying you did said taking that deep breath, because what happens when you take these deep breaths, it triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. And I just love that parasympathetic nervous system because that's the calming system, the calming nervous system in our body. It calms you down. It produces good endorphins and helps you to relax. Dilate blood vessels so blood can flow, get to your brain and all of the body. Oh my goodness, I keep on saying how wonderfully and
I know.
fearfully.
Oh, we really
Yes.
are. I see your hand, Miss Lee.
I thank you so much, Dr. Sankey, for bringing this important subject to us. Something that we may not think about, but I know for me, I have a lot of projects and it seems like I just can't get it all done. And then before, I would stay awake 1 o'clock, just trying to complete everything. But since we have how we know how important it is now to rest, I just stop everything at 10 o'clock and I go to bed. And I find that I'm still able to complete the projects when I wake up. So really, you just really need to take time to rest. And what Emily was talking about, I've heard like in South America, they all like their lunch period, they just stop for 2 hours. Everybody close down, and sometimes they go home, go to sleep, and come back and continue. And I think in Italy also, but those countries in Europe, they do that, and I think it's really worthy to do.
Yeah, I agree
you.
wholeheartedly. Thank you, Ms. Lee. So that's a testimony of actually applying the knowledge, going to bed at 10 o'clock, going to bed at night, just getting in the bed. I mean, even if you don't go to sleep, but your body knows that is a place where you sleep. That's so important. The other day I went by CVS, I had to pick up something and they had a sign up there between certain hours. I think it was like, I can't remember what the hours were, maybe from 1:30 to 2:30, the drive-through window is closed, they're taking their break or whatever. And I say, that is great that organization has given them permission to step away and take a lunch break, because I know for many years, not that my company, but I would eat at my desk, wouldn't go to the cafeteria. In fact, even at work where I am now, a lot of people are beginning to eat at their desk. And I had started doing that too. But this week, I'm like, oh no, I'm going right down to the kitchen. I'm going to leave my phone. I'm going to leave everything in my office. I'm going to eat, And so we have to train our bodies that our bodies are very important to us. And if we don't treat them with care and caution, we're harming them. We're harming the body. So yes, so I think that is very important for us we maybe can't take the siesta, but we certainly can choose not to just eat and work at the same time. Any other questions?
That's a good point you brought out, that you step away from your desk, you go to the cafeteria and you eat. Because we talked about this before, when you're eating, you want to give those digestive enzymes time to digest your food. So when you're under stress, because at your desk, you're doing something, you're stressing yourself out. You will not be able to digest your food as it should. And that's going to cause indigestion and bloating and all gas and all of that, because your food is not digested properly. So that's a good practice.
Absolutely.
So, listening to this topic today, I started practicing going to bed, try to go to bed. I started going to bed from 10 o'clock. And so now I have developed a clockwork now. I go to bed by 10 and I'm up by 7. I don't need an alarm clock. I just wake up. And the majority of the time it's 7 o'clock. And I feel so much better. I can get up and go take my walk and come back and have all the energy. So it's good for us to put these different practice, these things that we're learning into practice.
Absolutely.
It's so beneficial, because this is a healthy lifestyle we're trying to develop. So
right. And
thank you, Dr.
We're trying to live well, for sure. And and I would mention one day, because Emmeline is actually an hour ahead. So right now it's like 6 something there in St. Croix. But I remember when I called her one night, I was maybe 8:45 where I was, but it was 9:45 where she was. And I said, Emmeline, were you going to bed? She says, yes. She says, it's almost 10 o'clock here. And ordinarily, Emmeline and I would continue our conversation, right? But I said to her, I said, I'll call you tomorrow. I say, because both of us really need to be in bed, because I really should be going to bed at 9. And she was already in bed because it was almost 10 there. So again, we're actually also trying to apply the principles that we're talking about, because we do know that our bodies are the temple of God, and we want to make sure that we care for them the very best that we can.